Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, the most important 90 minutes of your day today. I'm Michael, the MC and opportunity ambassador for today's adventure. And today's topic is, what the fuck are you doing? With me, my guest hosts, with me, my fellow hosts are Willow, our trauma consultant,
Hi, everyone.
Dennis, our freedom facilitator,
Blessed love, everyone. You woke me up right there.
and Agnieszka, our psychosomatic illuminator.
Nice to be here, everyone. What the fuck are you doing? Willow's like,
I'm trying to get something done over here.
I've been asked that question so many times in my life that it's almost like a trigger reflex. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do it.
Anyway, that's the title of today's
that's definitely
show.
the way to begin.
That's the way to begin. The artistry of loving relationship. Is that ships? Is that what we're talking about today?
Right. We're talking about a new project for the Raising Excellence crew. We're actually going to put together a documentary, and this is going to be kind of an introduction to the idea, because we're going to invite the audience and everybody, all our friends and everything, to really kind of get involved in this thing, because this is going to be a study, a discovery of what is the artistry of loving relationships, because this is something that, what the fuck are people doing out there, because they're really handing themselves over to a meat grinder of bogus baloney. And what are they giving up when they agree to be in this fear mongering, morass of, we don't even know. I don't even know where we're headed, but it's only going to get worse, because people don't really understand that there's a choice, or a lot of people don't understand that there's a choice, that you can have a crazed society where you don't trust anybody, and you've got to look over your shoulder every 10 seconds, or
what are
you can do something
doing
different.
out there?
And that's kind of what but there's that opportunity to have a big choice. And so that's, I think we're going to start off this first segment, and we're going to talk a little bit about an introduction to the idea and what that could mean. But I'll just go around the room. What is everybody, just off the top of your head, what are you feeling about this project, and what do you see as the potential or possibilities?
Do you want me to start? Nobody else is jumping. I think that loving relationships. So I'm in Toastmasters, and Toastmasters is a public speaking club. And everybody outside of Toastmasters thinks that the most important thing about Toastmasters is delivering those prepared speeches, right? You work really hard for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you prepare the prepared speech. But that's not where the power of Toastmasters lies. Power of Toastmasters lies in the tiny little one-liners, one sentence, little tidbits that you go throughout each meeting. And when you have experience, like a year or 2 or 5 years of experience with these little tiny one-liners, then you can ad-lib anything at any time for anyone, for any reason. Just make it up. And it's just practice. It's the same with loving relationships, because we think that the loving relationship is like the husband who you found, but not your ex-husband, because that's not a loving relationship, and not that guy that you dated for 5 days. That's not, no, that's not it. We're talking about epic, something that lasts at least 75 years. But that's not what loving relationships are. Some loving relationships are with people we maybe met once for 10 minutes, but we have made an impact on each other such that we carry that memory throughout our life. Those are loving relationships. The relationships that we have between us here, those are loving relationships. The relationships that help us become a better person, help us grow, and get us a kick in the ass every time we need it, right? not the kind of relationships that pander to giving us what we want to hear. Those are not loving relationships. Those are fake relationships. Pack your bags and run right now. Don't wait. Don't wait till the end of the show. Just pack your bags and run. She was going to say I shouldn't tell people to run.
Or you will.
I was going to say something, but then I realized that I misspelled my name on the screen, and I was like, oh, dang. Feel bad. Don't feel like an idiot.
Who cares?
I really
you're
like
Living
fallible.
relationships.
I really like what you said, Agnieszka, about how there's a bunch of people who don't know what loving relationships are, and they think they find it in fake relationships. And this is the difference between love and affirmation. And a lot of people have been in
You mean
traumatic
pandering
situations.
or affirmation?
Affirmation is the result of pandering. You're trying to affirm what they believe is true and relate to them. So I don't like pandering, because I feel like it's doing it for fake reasons, for not loving relationship reasons. But the problem when you get out of a traumatic situation is you want to be affirmed. You want to have people who would say, yes, you're experiencing something that's really awful. It's a really hard time for you. I can tell that you're struggling, and I can tell that you're trying your hardest not to break down right now. And they surround themselves with people who tell them that all the time, because it makes them feel loved. It makes them feel like they know what love is. And when someone comes across their path and says, smoking those cigarettes is a death wish. You're hurting yourself. You're intentionally hurting yourself. Why are you doing this behavior? And intentionally bringing yourself down. That's a loving relationship. That's someone who's willing to say, I don't care if you hate me for this, but I'm not willing to just sit by and watch you destroy your life when I think you deserve better.
What about the relationship with yourself that allows you to quit the cigarettes?
That's also a loving relationship, which for me didn't happen until I found I acknowledged that I had loving relationships outside of me. And it made me wonder, why did these people have loving relationships with me, but I don't love myself? How can all these people see it? How can all these people want to dedicate their time and their energy to dealing with my shit?
When you don't?
Yeah, when I don't. And then I had to start, if I take them if they're valuable in my life. I saw this awesome quote on Facebook where it was like, the demon monster comes and he's telling you all of these awful things, like you're a piece of crap and you can't do anything right, and your friends only like you because they feel pity for you. And all of a sudden, the individual turns around and he goes, no, my friends like me for me. Are you calling my friends a liar? Like, they get pissed off because the voice in their head is calling their friends a liar, and they know that their friends are not liars, so they know how to defend them, and then they can translate it to themselves. But there's a lot of people who don't understand what a loving relationship is. It's a lot of people have never had it. They've never had someone sit through the tough times with them. They just want to shut it up. They want to stop the tough times. They want to make it go away, and they want to be that person that makes it go away, but they don't want to sit there with it.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about the topic and about the possibility of doing a documentary on it, actually. And I'm really looking forward to see where we can take this project and how far we're gonna go, who we can involve, who will make a step forward and become part of it. And what really seems most exciting to me is, talking about love, talking about relationships. If you recognize, and I'd like to quote Barry Long, who says, love is all around. Love is all around you like the air, and is the very breath of your being. So if you take him by the word, and if you recognize that love is literally all there is, and you relate that to your being, to your holistic being, then so there's a loving relationship with others, and we can discuss if there is even an other. We touched upon that before. And then for the relationship that you build with yourself is like, what kind of relationship do you have with yourself, with the different parts of your being, with your body? How do you treat your body? How do you interact? How do you ensure that you tell your body that you love it? It's what carries you it's the vehicle that carries you through this life. What kind of things can you do there, to improve upon that relationship that you have with your own body? What about your mind? What about your emotional being? What about the spiritual aspect of your being? How do you do you cherish that? How do you improve the relationship with those aspects of your own beingness? And then if love is all there is, then how does that reflect that relationship that you have with yourself? How does that reflect towards others? And you have mentioned us, as a little community, then the wider community of our audience, our tribes that we come from, autonomy, that was something that how we really found out, and how we found each other. And what really at the core of it really to me is that it's not only the art of loving relationships, but what I'm really hoping to find out more about, and to kind of dig a little deeper, is to improve my relationship with love. So
What do you mean your relationship with love?
Well, if love is all there is, then how do we improve our relationship? How do we relate to love itself in a more profound, in a deeper way? How do we recognize that as a intricate part of our beingness, really? And then truly there, is there freedom in love itself? Khalil Gibran says, love is the only freedom in the world, because it so elevates the spirit that the laws of humanity and the phenomena of nature do not alter its course. So those, I'm sure we could discuss that quote alone to length. And I know there's a lot to love, and there's a lot to to unveil into this cover, and I'm looking forward to this journey ahead of us, for me, as self, but also for you and for our audience. And let's see how far we take it and where we're going with it.
Yeah, one of the things I'd add to this, because there's a couple things I heard that I really liked, but I also want to add is it's an opportunity for us to all be aware of who are the people that are practicing the art of loving relationships, and so like when we start to become like we're starting to look for who are the people that are practicing it, who are the people that demonstrate the loving relationship, what do they think about, what are the this is where the documentary really kind of comes into play, and this venue can be part of that, is really kind of finding those people and then inviting our audience to find those people too. So like we're all kind of on an exploration of this idea. And so I think it could really be exciting for us as what is, like, hey, I've found somebody, check this person out. And then we get to bring them in. But then we also get to invite, our fellow students and graduates, as well as, the larger audience out there to say, hey, hold, I got somebody who would be cool to bring in. And then also about like what are the different kinds of relationships, what are the different kinds of love that we can express towards each other, how do we actually visualize those, and what are those actually like, how do we put those things together, how does that stuff, because a lot of this stuff is being swept under the carpet, and taboo subjects that we really need to understand better, because there's a lot of loving relationships that are basically being pushed away because, oh well, if you don't do that, don't make that happen, whether it be like a coach and players, or teachers and students. You there's, oh well, where do we want to draw the line, because that could be dangerous, all that kind of stuff. These are all areas that I think we can cover and could really draw a lot of attention to something that I think is really important. Oh, Agnisha, we
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
How is this possible? How? Anyway, This is very interesting because I was thinking of the past, and in the past, the apprentice and the master had a very deep personal relationship. It was one of those key personal relationships you can have in life. You know, the relationship with your parents, the relationship with your spouse, and the relationship with your trainer, your master, the person that's like, you know, and now all the propaganda is no personal relationships at work, no personal relationships in the gym, no personal relationships with your coach, no personal relationships. And all these people are portrayed as like child abusing assholes and all of these things. But that can't be true for everyone. There have to be times and places where people have had a really deep personal relationship with the coach and with their master and with their teacher. You know what I mean?
Well, I'd agree, because ultimately you can't have a good relationship if you don't trust someone. So you have to develop this like deep bond of trust, which usually entails sharing personal details. It's saying like, I have experienced sexual assault. So when I have a client who comes to me and they're like, you know what, I was sexually assaulted, I'm like, me too. What do you want to know? What do you want to talk about? What's the biggest issue? Like, I start talking on their level because I know what it's like. And there's a lot of this, I call it the clinical professionalism. I hate it. It's why I won't go and like do psychology. Like, I won't go to school for psychology. I won't go and get licensed. I won't get certified for like the bachelor's and master's programs and become a doctor so I can prescribe people medicine, because they don't allow you to develop a personal relationship. You can't say certain things. You have to maintain a professional persona, not in a like, you know, oh, this is how I am professionally. It's more of like, this is how I am as fake me. It really diminishes the ability to develop a real relationship with someone, because when they don't, like, Agnieszka, you and I have encountered this so many times. How many times have I called you and I'm like, I can't take this, and you're like, you can take this. I'm like, I know I can take this, but I don't feel like I can, and I need you to acknowledge that I can't take this right now. Like, that miscommunication, if you don't have that trust of being like, I can yell at you and then I can apologize later because those were bad actions, you're not.
Or they were good actions. What if I deserve to be yelled at that time?
Maybe, but you never know till you do it. Like, there's a lot of professionalism going around that decreases the ability to connect with people on a personal level, and that's what we all need. That's what we're all missing.
So this new series, The Artistry of Loving Relationships. I don't know why I keep saying singular. This is what's going to show our perspective and our guest perspectives on that deep internal connection with others on a deeper level, not just in romantic relationships and not just in familiar relationships, but also in those relationships that maybe are fly by night, or maybe those are deep interpersonal relationships that are professional or colleagues. Like, I mean, what are we? We met at a school, we work together, we play together. Where's the line? Now, I was watching this benefit concert the other day, and this lady said that the people, and this was in Polish, so maybe some of the Polish kind of expressions, but she says, we artists, we belong in the ones that are free professions, the professions that are called free professions. And in free professions, we get to do whatever we want with whoever we want. And that's why when we work with our favorite people. And I thought, how apt for all of us in Autonomy, right? When we work, we're not going to work with whoever like life throws at us. We're going to work with the people that we really care about, like you guys.
It's so true, and it ties in perfectly with what Willow was talking about, because I was reminded of, you know, when I was working in Jamaica, and I focused on children and youth especially, and at a certain point, you know, there were sometimes collaborations with other local or even, you know, multinational organizations, sometimes, you know, like children aid organizations, or there were certain projects and programs going on, and so I always had worked, and our little group had worked very, you know, organically, so to say, you know, like and to me, it always has been, and it always will be, it's like a family thing. So the group, the relationship with my students, that was not like, okay, I'm opening the office door, I'm stepping in the office, and that's office. No, that's my life, that's what I live. That's not what I do, that's what I live. So these are also my family, these are my friends. It was I don't say it's not important, also to have, and Mike, you touched upon it, like what the relationship as a coach to a student is like, how do we define that? And we have to be aware, because there's weird people and weird things going on, and there need to be certain standards, and people have to be educated about that and adhere to it. And at the same time, what I heard from Willow a while ago is like, and that's what I experience as well. Like those kind of codified processes, sometimes they stifle, and they even prevent or might even destroy relationships and the quality of interaction of relationship that has been built, organically. It's like out of love, so to say, and then it's like, oh, it becomes all weird, because now, you have, you got this file with 10 pages, and it determines what you're allowed to do and what not if you interact with a student. So if I'm going through the door and the children come towards me and want to give me a hug and say, hi coach, how are you doing? And like, it's like, oh, it's all weird, because I'm not allowed to hug you again, or I'm not allowed to touch you, but like, how I'm supposed to adjust your position and your, those were some of the thoughts that went through my mind. It's like, wow, on one side, the intention might be good, to prevent, awkward questions, or to prevent like funders of asking, oh, like, do you have standards? Do you have this and that? But on the other side also, there would have to be a standard and a way of working that really allows for loving relationship, so there should be like a framework that gives you the freedom to express yourself, and that doesn't limit and stifle the way how you express and how you interact naturally, with good intention, and which is comfortable for all involved parties, obviously. And like, if somebody like spontaneously, happy and a student comes up and wants to hug me and say hello or goodbye, then I don't want anything, that makes that child feel that it's weird, or me also feel weird about that, because that is really stifling and cutting off a natural thing that happens naturally. And I feel that the work that I'm doing, or that we are doing, is to build loving relationships with people, with the students, with the clients, with our family, with our friends, with our community, and that is what will make the difference in the end.
Well, there's
Relationships
something I
built in
want to cover in
trust.
the second.
Relationships based
ahead.
in trust, specifically. Loving relationships based in trust among people.
There's something I want to cover in the second segment in regard to like loving kind of, artificial representations that I think a lot of the society is kind of caught on. But I also want to bring in something that, like Dennis, you really have a love of the practice of capoeira. And there's other things, like for me, I love Acapulco, and I can share that with other people. And certainly when I have that opportunity to, meet with other people that love Acapulco, it's just like, oh man, we gel. It's great time. Everything is wonderful. And those are also areas that, it is also like the different types of love that are out there, and the different ways that we can create relationships with different things that we can express our love and be passionate about, that we can then share with other people. Those are also areas that I think are worthy of exploration when it comes to, what is the bigger picture here? Because all of this stuff, again, is just, all of these things are things that we need to make people aware of. There's a choice to be made, and are you giving up on a lot of stuff just because, because, that's the way it's accepted? Because, if you look at movies and TV shows, you're rarely going to find a really authentic loving relationship. They're always kind of, for the most part, they're based on, conditional love at best. Or, oh, if you're cool, we love you.
Also,
or
when it comes to
Go ahead.
media relationships, I wanted to point this out because it took me a really long time to understand. I'm a sucker for like romantic, like I'm a girl. I like seeing the happy ending where the girl gets the guy and whatever that may entail. It makes me feel good. But I realized the reason it makes me feel good is because it just shows you the results of a loving relationship. It shows you the wonderful moments. It doesn't show you the arguments over how you reorganize the dishwasher and how that might like make your other partner feel, and then you guys have a breakdown, and then 4 hours later you're like, that really wasn't such a big deal, but I'm really glad that we had this argument about it so that we understand just how annoying it is for this other person to have to deal with this thing. It makes the relationship stronger, and then you get to the point where you do make jokes about each other's flaws in a loving manner, and you do get that like movie kind of like reaction, but it doesn't show all the hard work that goes into it. It doesn't show the action that actually goes into a loving relationship. One of my favorite quotes about love in general is, love is not a feeling. It's not a sensation. It is an action. You act like you love someone because you do, and then you get the good feelings from it. You get the connection. But what you're feeling here, or like the butterflies, all that stuff, that's not love. It's just the reaction to it.
Good point. Good point.
Do you guys know this book? It's called The Mastery of Love of Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
You mind if I share a few lines?
Please.
It's from the chapter The Perfect Relationship.
Ooh.
It goes you're not going to change a dog for a cat or a dog for a horse. It is what it is. Just accepting this fact in your relations with other humans is very important. You cannot change other people. You love them the way they are or you don't. You accept them the way they are or you don't. To try to change them to fit what you want them to be is like trying to change a dog for a cat or a cat for a horse. That is a fact. They are what they are. You are what you are. You dance or you don't dance. You need to be completely honest with yourself, to say what you want, to see if you are willing to dance or not. You must understand this point, because it is very important. When you truly understand, you are likely to see what is true about others, and not just what you want to see. Yeah, I'll keep it right there. But I thought that was an interesting point as well. It's like as a kind of foundational thing that oftentimes it's and we mentioned that a few minutes ago about the conditional part. Like we put a condition to love, and once you put a condition to it, is it arguable love at all? So to accept what is, and to be aware that this is a dog, and I can't make him a cat, or with your partner, and
even if
with
it's
your
the
own
same
body.
size as a cat, you can't make him
That
into
too.
a cat.
You
I
know,
got a
learn to learn
cat-sized
to
dog.
love,
You can try for Halloween.
to learn to
There-
fall in love with your body, for example. Like it's like, okay, you have to accept what is. Okay, this is my body. Thank you for carrying me through life, and I appreciate this. I'm grateful for that. But you have to, acknowledge it for what it is. It's your body. It's all that it is. It's great. It's fantastic. But it's still your body. This is not your mind, not your emotion. It's your body. We're dealing with the body right now.
You reminded me of another quote about love, and I'm not a religious person. I used to be. I was raised. I kind of fell out of my faith for a while, and I'm starting to kind of figure all that out again now. But this quote is from Corinthians. I'm sure everyone has probably heard it before, but it's stuck with me all these years throughout losing my faith and everything. So it's got some nugget of truth in it. Says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always preserves.
An interesting tidbit about that quote is in the King James Bible, they changed love to charity.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Wow.
And so
Isn't
that
that all
the
the
whole
That's
The
a lot of
whole
change.
meaning of the paragraph will be different if you go charity is patient
Love
and
charity.
kind. A lot of places.
Charity is a form of love, of a loving relationship, yes, but you can't just say that charity is love. Like,
Maybe the old Christians wanted it to be. They were hoping you'd give the church all their money. Oops, did I say that out loud? So, what else is new today?
definitely not the church getting money.
But that brings up a good point, and that is really what is love, and what is the definition of love? Is there different types of love? That's kind of another thing that really is, because love is really a generalized word that's kind of been bastardized in a lot of different ways, and this is another part of the exploration, I think, is just what is love. Like, how do you express it? Where does it entail? What are the different ways to love? And I know the Greeks have a couple different words for love, and if you Google the types of love, you're going to find that there's a lot of different answers. So that's another area, I think, that's really up for discussion and certainly exploration. But then you look at all the other things. So, like, what is the different types of relationships? That's, I guess, another question. Is there's a whole lot of different types of relationships. And again, I think these are all areas that, by us kind of training a little bit of a spotlight on what that could be, I think it's going to open people's eyes to a lot of awareness. And when they get out there and we start asking them, who are the people that are practicing this artistry of a loving relationship? And we start asking people to, like, look into their own past and history and memories. Who are the people that influenced them? Who are the people that displayed, a art of love relationships? I think we can really kind of change a lot of people's perspective.
Do you guys remember? That was a few months back. I don't remember quite the name of the show, but we touched upon love already, and I brought this quote, which was like really hitting home from very long again, about love not being a feeling. You remember that one? The difference between a feeling and a sensation. See, I have it right here. It's called love is not a feeling, it's a sensation. Drinking water when you're thirsty is a sensation, not a feeling. Being in nature or swimming in the sea is a sensation, not a feeling. Lying down when you're tired is sensational, not a feeling, although you may say it feels good. Feeling is an emotional interpretation of experience, and these sensations don't need interpretation. They are just good or right. Making physical love rightly is a sensation, not a feeling. So is the love of God. The same goes for joy and beauty. Both are sensational. I found that really worthy to be quoted again. It's from Barry Long, who has dedicated his life, I guess one could say, to explore love and what love is, and to live in that. So that goes out as a recommendation as well, to check out his work. There's a lot of his books and his talks out there. He's from Australia, I believe.
Well, let's dig into this a little bit in regard to the way that relationships are portrayed today, and all the things that people have been kind of steered into a kind of understanding of what
is there any way?
And how they should be,
Is there any way you can reboot your modem or something, or your router? It seems like you're breaking up unusually lots today. I'm sorry to be a bearer.
It wasn't that bad at the beginning.
And this very important topic.
Can we psychoanalyze it?
I say it might help. A lot of times when I'm like the video's breaking up and the sound's breaking up, if you exit and then come back in, it'll reboot you for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Let's all work on our loving relationship.
Talk amongst yourself as I reboot myself.
We will do that. So let's talk about Michael. Now that he's gone, we can. Oh shit, he's still here.
He's not gone yet.
Super modem powers on.
Well, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what Mike was saying about talking about like the loved ones in our lives, like the actual loving relationships and what they look like, because they look very different from what is prescribed to us on TV and even our the people we see. I can't tell you how many couples I see in public, and I think, oh dear God, I'm so happy. I come home and I thank my husband. I'm like, I'm so happy I'm with you. I see it on Facebook and I'm like, I'm so happy I'm here with you because I don't have to deal with that shit. And
Welcome
I'm really
back,
grateful.
Michael.
How is it now? Better?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, so I just wanted to dig into like what's actually happening to people now, and like what is that about? I mean, does each of you see the particular, or is there particular things that you see that's going on in the world and the way that people perceive relationships? I would just say, like in general, like I said, with the media and stuff like that, a lot of people are, they're drifting away. They're becoming more lonely. And because of that, they're substituting like television actors and characters and stories for like real life experience. And unfortunately, that's all kind of bad information. And when it, and then when it comes to like their professional life and all these other circumstances, there's also other guidelines that are, oh, well, this is how you're supposed to conduct yourself. But all that is really suspect in my opinion. But I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you think?
I would agree, and it seems as if the current situation is accelerating a process that has been going on for quite a while, and probably highlighting the dysfunctional parts of society, or of the way that we have been living our lives, and then from a different perspective, through that bringing to the light what might have been hidden to some people still. Others, I guess, would have been able to see and perceive that from a long time and would have been up in gears already, you're doing something about it. But now like you said, it's almost impossible to not to see what is going on. And also so it is an opportunity also not to fall in those behaviors that I guess it seems we ought to fall in in order to be more manageable, and in order to disconnect.
What do you mean be more
that
manageable? What does that mean? Be in order to be more manageable?
Well, you're less of a problem and you're more predictable.
Why would you want to be less of a problem? I like being the problem. I like being a
You
rock.
want to be a problem. You want to be a problem to like the government. You don't want to be a problem to your family. That's actually one of the biggest issues that trauma survivors have when they go to heal, is because they know that they're gonna lose their shit for a little bit, and they don't want to put that burden on their family. They don't want their family to have to deal with it, so they'll just lock it up inside. None of us. It's a survival technique. We don't want to damage our core relationships because they are very, very essential to us and our psyche to be able to function.
So is that being used against us? So that's super interesting what you just said. So are there then mechanisms put in place where we can release our emotions, but in a maybe meaningless way, in a way that we don't really deal with it and don't really work through it and build strong and loving relationships by going through the motions and emotions with other human beings in a way that I would argue we're supposed to? Because if you look at it like a wave always has the the way up and has the way down, so it always has to swing, it has to resonate in both directions. So if we talk about the super nice and smiley and happy part of love, which is certainly there, then we also have to talk about the downwards
filling the dishwasher
of the wave of love. Which is part of it as well.
The fear of losing it. Like it's the process that your mind goes through when that person hasn't called you and that they were driving in a really long dark highway for 6 hours and they were really tired. Your mind starts being like, what's gonna happen? Like, how am I gonna deal with this loss of something that I love?
And turns out he just went out for a beer instead.
Yeah. And then comes the anger because I just wasted all of my,
energy.
Fear response energy where I'm like, oh my God, I need to get prepared for this feeling. He's dead. And then I'm like, you're not dead. I didn't have to do that.
Screw you, you're not dead. I'm gonna show you what it's like to be dead. Yeah.
Sorry, I derailed the conversation.
That's totally my first husband and I relationship right there. Him strolling in with a smile on his face at 5 o'clock in the morning, me going, where have you been?
And there's like the lack of communication where like a loving relationship is saying, maybe you were gone for 10 minutes, maybe you were gone for 5 hours, maybe you got home at 8 p.m., maybe you got home at 5 a.m. It doesn't really matter. But if you come home and your spouse is sitting there crying because they thought you were dead, honey, you got a problem you got to address. It doesn't matter if there actually was a legitimate fear. You need to address the fact that like this person who you claim to care about is suffering from something.
That's funny. Because my first husband sometimes listens to our show. And his favorite thing to say was, oh, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
Hey, that's what you get me.
I
you
went
married
out.
me.
That's right. And well, he went out with him. He met 5 street people who were so fascinating. He had to spend the night in the park drinking beer with them and talking about their life histories and finding out what war they fought and where they fought and what went on and their whole sordid history of their life. And then 5 o'clock rolled around. He realized that he should go home. He strolls home. He's all happy. He just made 5 new friends. He's bringing them home next weekend. He's already scheduled a party. And I'm pissed. What's wrong?
And he doesn't understand why you're not just as excited to meet these 5 new people as he was.
If he's listening, he's laughing. Yes.
Well, there's like, I think what you're mentioning to me, or what the word or what the thought came to me is like sports and stuff like that, where people like that's their outlet for loving something, is they love their sports team because they can't love anything else.
How can you love a sports team though? You don't know a sports team.
Well, you can see those people. They've got like everything is in their team colors, their car, their house, their furniture is the same as the team colors. I mean, that to me is a like an expression that they want to love something and they can't love the things that
because things are complicated. Love, like things that you can love, they're messy, like say you choose a pet. Pets are really great because they have lots of love to give, right? But then they poop and then you have to deal with that poop. Like depending on the pet, there's different ways of dealing with it, but you always have to deal with some poop. And then you have to cook for them and you have to like wash their bum if it's dirty and caked with poop. And there are all sorts of things.
Poop seems to be a major problem.
Oh, just wait till they eat a piece of string and you have to pull it out of their butt because they can't poop it all out. Tell me.
Lord have mercy.
I can't tell you how many times I've actually said this to our dog before he passed, as I'm like pulling a turd out of his butt because he ate something grass usually. Is be like, I love you. I love you so much that I'm willing to do this and not yell at you because I know it's not your fault. But that's why I say love is an action, because no, it's not fun to be woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning so that my dog can go outside and bark at a cat. No, that's not fun at all.
Fortunately, my dog only like has diarrhea or throws up when she wakes me up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Maybe that's just his interpretation of a loving relationship right there.
Well,
loving relationships are complicated.
It requires communication.
Well, that's another area, is unconditional love. What actually is unconditional love, and how far can that go? In a lot of different areas.
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if unconditional. I do believe unconditional love exists. I believe that you get it from your mother.
What makes you think you get it from your mother, not from your father?
Maybe from both, from your parents. I'm not.
That just speaks to your father relationship issues.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all good to get the same ones.
But I think like if I were to unconditionally love someone who, let's say I have a child and they turn out to be a serial killer. Let's not even talk about why they became a serial killer, because that might be my fault too. But I'm still gonna love them. As a mother, I think that would be unconditional love. It's like no matter what you do, I'm still going to love you.
But there are
But
different
if my
like
friend, if I have a friend who just randomly told me one day and they're like, "Hey, we're such good friends. I want to let you know that I'm a serial killer and I have like 7 bodies in my basement." Or, you know,
You'd
oh,
no
I was
bread out
raised
of
in a
there.
really abusive home and so I beat the crap out of my children and starved them to show them discipline. I'd be like,
and then they buried them in the walls.
I'm good. I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to contribute my effort and my energy to that. I could not say that I'd have unconditional love for someone. There are conditions to my love. Like,
Yeah.
one, you
Well,
can't
but-
abuse me.
But
You can't-
isn't,
Go ahead.
well, isn't it interesting though that this is kind of the topic that comes up, like serial killers and stuff like that? How you know, how often do those? I mean, this is another thing that like the media like totally like rejiggers our perception of the world, so that like we're always kind of, you know, we're kind of like examining everybody and we're saying, okay, which one of them is the serial killer? When the reality is it's
None
such
of them.
a small percentage.
Even most
that we-
psychopaths are not serial killers or killers
That
at
is
all.
true.
90%.
Actually, psychopath
90%
is
of
not-
psychopaths are probably not serial killers or killers. Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nothing. You said it.
Oh, sorry.
Shall we look at the root of the word love for a
Do
second?
it.
Certainly.
Do it,
Let's do
Denise.
it.
So etymologically, looking at love, it comes from the Old English word lufu, Lufu, which is the feeling of love, romantic,
Shambhavi.
sexual attraction, affection, friendliness, the love of God, which is, you know, being quoted by itself, which is interesting. Love as an abstraction or personification. From Proto-Germanic lubo, Lubo, source also of Old High German Lubi, which is joy. That is that's interesting to me. The German word Liebe, which means love in English. Old Norse, Old Frisian, Dutch Lof, Lof, and also the German word Lob, which means praise.
But
in
hang
English,
on, because
related to
lubi
that.
is a Slavic root. Again, they skip things because Yatyevia lublю is I love you in Russian, right? And lubi in Polish means I like you. Lubię, I like you. So it's all forms of love too in the Slavic realms with the same root.
Interesting. It doesn't
I wonder-
cite the Slavic
Don't
one,
worry,
just
it
the
never cites the
Saxon one.
Slavic. It never
Frisian,
cites the
Dutch.
Slavic because I think that they have the Slavic thing stuck in the wrong part of the linguistic thing and they don't do it. But then if you look at like some weird documents, obscure documents, they'll cite the Slavic.
The Old High
weird.
Germanic one is interesting though, because it's Liob, Liob. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but that's how I would say it from a German.
Yeah,
point
but
of
is
view.
that
But it's a-
B
it's a
that's like
mixture
an
of
S?
Lob and Liebe. It's the
Lob.
Liob. So Liebe would be love in German, and Lob would be praise. So that seems to be like a perfect mixture of those two together, which is interesting.
Interesting.
And the root word is from Leub, Leubh, which is to care, to desire, to love. So I find it always really exciting and fascinating to to dig a little deeper the root of the word, where it comes from, what it meant.
Yeah.
And there's so much that can be revealed through that alone.
Yeah.
And the only
I think
reason
that
I'm
should
bringing that
be-
Russian thing is because I think that if we get the key to languages, we can understand each other, right? If we find all the words that are connected with the same root in all the different languages, then we can understand each other that much better. And those
I
words.
think it'd be awesome to create like the whole segment of this documentary that's just about the definition, the etymology of the word, the phrases that mean that you love them in other languages and the languages of the word love, and see what all it ties to, because you
Do
never
like a
know
research
what
paper.
you never really know what someone is saying until you understand why they're saying it. One of my favorite examples is the French variation of "I miss you." It doesn't mean I miss you. It translates almost verbatim into "a part of me is missing." So it's not. It totally is a different feeling. It labels a completely different emotion that's going on.
What
instead of
really
just go ahead.
what really hits home with me is that putting love with joy. So, and then if you put relationship, relating to, which means relationship is like the connection to or a person or a thing. So if you put joy instead of love, then it's like, oh, it's about connecting, having a connection to joy. So is that maybe, like an important factor in life, that you actually are able to connect to joy, that you can find the joy in, seeing the dog as a dog, although you thought you preferred a cat, but you acknowledge the dog for being a dog, you acknowledge your husband, your body, whatever, for what it is, and you can find joy in that. Not only like, okay, you're there, but it's like, wow, to feel that joy, that what creation has brought about this, and to be in that feeling of joy and in that sensation, maybe of joy. I think that's there's some food for thought in that for me.
Michael?
Well, in regard to kind of the types of love and that kind of thing, I was also thinking about, what was I thinking about?
What were you?
I feel like, I got distracted by a message somebody sent me.
That's what happens.
When was the
just skip
just tell me there.
Just skip me for now.
Next.
I'll think of it.
Next.
What the fuck are you doing?
Can you guys remember any moment in your life, that would come to mind, like where you felt loved or where you felt love that was, almost overwhelming, or something that really marked your life?
I had that experience. I've had the experience more than once. This was probably the first time where it became emotionally overwhelming. And I think it was actually the catalyst to ending that relationship. I was 18, dating a guy who was way older than me. I had no business dating. It was fun, but not for me in the end. But I remember I thought that his family didn't like me very much. And then we were at a family get-together, and all of a sudden everyone was making fun of me, but not in a like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you brought her kind of way. It was more of a, you're part of the family, and so we're going to pick on you because we like you. And I got really uncomfortable, and his mom came over to me, and it was the only time I actually really related to his mom really well. And she was like, we're teasing you to try and get you to be part of the family because we actually really like you, and this is how we show affection. And I hope it's not upsetting you because we do consider you part of the family. And her taking that moment, she was a very, very blunt, in your face kind of woman, scared the living shit out of me being 18. And she just came over and was like, I can see that you're not responding well to our form of affection, and I want you to understand it more. And that really made it, like, it overwhelmed me. It made me super emotional. I started crying, and then she felt even worse because I started crying, and I was like, no, it's good. It's really good. It's really happy. And that kind of put me in a state where I was like, oh, this could be like a real family thing. And that actually triggered my PTSD because I felt really safe. And so my brain was like, nope, you can't do this. And I ended up messing that whole relationship up really, really bad. But that was my first experience where it was really overwhelming. I didn't know what to do. I felt really embarrassed.
Understandable when you're 18. Shit's new. Dennis? What?
Yeah, I'm pondering like which part of my life to really focus on, because there's if I start thinking about it, like, wow, there's so much as relating to my perceived self, but also then relationship with others, whether it's family or like relationships. So it's like, wow. And Mike, you brought up the whole the love of capoeira. In my case, that's also a relationship in itself. It's even funny because like it's in Portuguese, it's a female word. So like some people say jokingly, oh, she's a female, so you have to be careful. She can be jealous too, and whatever. But it's a relationship as well.
It's an egregor. It's a very strong egregor. Capoeira would have a it would be like an entity in and of itself, because so many thousands of people practice it every day, right?
And you have to find your very own way. So that was like maybe that's like worth mentioning. If you relate to things, that you do, that you live, then at a stage it became really clear that I have to define, you mentioned the word egregor, like I have to define it for myself. I can look at my master, I can look at other people, like how they relate to their capoeira and how they perceive it. But like I only can look at it through my lens, and I have to define, how I relate to her. And I have to build this relationship in a way that it's, mutually beneficial. So it's like everything I do, it's like it is for her benefit, so to say, and for my own as well. And to find that balance is like, that's not a thing that you do one time and then that's good, but you have to continuously, find that balance, like, and kind of, make sure you move in a way that you don't stumble, but also that you're, that you're basically on your feet, you're enjoying yourself. So you're dancing, you're fighting, doing all that at the same time, but you don't drop down. And if you ever drop, you have to drop good, which means you fall on your hands and feet, not on your bottom or your back.
Sounds like a teacher who said it 1,000 ways, 1,000 times. Yeah. On your feet and feet, not on your bottom or your back.
Exactly. And when you get up, you smile. And the worse the situation, the bigger the smile. And you smile in the devil's face.
So when you're really injured, you're like, no?
Yeah. You remember, like, you can't feel pain and laugh at the same time.
Interesting.
Colleen is always worried when she sees me laugh.
As a matter of fact, that brought up something for me, and that is kind of the masculine perception of love versus the feminine perception of love, and the difference between those two. Because it seems to me like one of the things that as a young kid, and then growing up, I guess to some degree, the manly way to go about your emotions is to kind of hide a lot of your emotions and really kind of bury them in your actions. And so men are a lot more action orientated, and they kind of go on, what is the, you go on a journey, a hero's journey to essentially establish, how you feel about something. You feel so passionately about it, you're going to go and do something really tremendous. Whereas the feminine version is a lot more, is tremendously different. I would think about it like caring for a child, or caring for someone that's wounded or something like that kind of situation. But what are you guys' thoughts about that?
Wait, wounded or injured because of their own stupidity?
The masculine versus the feminine version of what love is.
Let's think about chocolate.
I'm sorry, my thoughts go right away to like.
Yeah, can you?
Wait.
Or we can just like, can you love chocolate? And if you eat it, does it like double it up on you? Or?
Oh, but that can't. That's not the same for humans, because if you love somebody, you're not gonna chop them up and eat them, right?
This is true.
Most people wouldn't.
So
anyway.
there's a different kind of love right there.
Can you actually love chocolate?
Well, it's an inanimate object.
With it?
Do you obsess with it, or do you just like?
Are you obsessed with it, or do you love it? Because it's the same concept.
I know, Willow. You're obsessed with cheesecake, not with chocolate. Cheesecake.
Okay, we're talking about cheesecake. It's a whole different ballgame, man. I was being objective, but I can't be objective when it's involving cheesecake.
I know. There's still a piece in the fridge. Want it?
I had a cheesecake treat. I had one bite, and then Kurt found it, and I saw him found it, and I was like, "You can have the rest. It's fine."
And later on that night, in the pillow, my cheesecake.
What you said about the masculine energy taking action, at first I wanted to disagree, because I feel like noticing that someone doesn't need an action, that they just need someone to sit with it, like sit with them, that is to me taking action. My action is I am choosing to sit with them and just handle. But that's not actually what it is. It's not an action. It's an inaction. It's stillness. It's endurance.
So it's a feminine, not a masculine thing.
Yeah. So that would be the equivalent to like it. This is why people associate it with caring for the wounded. You know why? Because the wounded don't get up and walk around. They sit there in the bed. They have to endure it. And you have to help them endure whatever is going on right now. You can't make it go away. You can't stop it. You can't erase it from the past. And you can't take away their feelings or the shit that they're dealing with. You have to know how to deal with it and show them how to deal with it.
Yeah.
I just had a picture in my mind. I'm not sure. I'm going to try to explain it. So picture a mirror at the wall, and then you picture the two eyes that are looking at the mirror. And
My
then,
eyes?
No, just the eyes. Love. So love is
Love's
looking.
eyes. Okay, those are different colored
So-
eyes than what I had.
Those are not the eyes I was imagining.
So love is looking at itself, and it has two, filters. So there's filter A and there's filter B. One is the masculine and one is the feminine. So it puts one filter in front of it, and then it looks through the filter in the mirror and sees back itself. And then it puts the other one and looks through the filter and looks at itself. But the one that's looking is the same.
Nice. So if Dennis were here, he would say, who's doing the looking? Who is the one that is looking?
So if love is doing the looking, then does it make a difference which filter is looking through? It doesn't. It just
But it
changes the
is true that
reflection.
masculine is action and like masculine is giving and feminine is receiving. Masculine is action, feminine is reflection. You know what I mean? Like there are all these masculine and feminine qualities in like
So
even alchemy.
So if you look at masculine and feminine, if you look at masculine and feminine as love being wrapped in a certain way, the unlimited, the infinite, basically veiling itself in a specific way, in a masculine or in a feminine way, and expressing itself through that, and then looking back at itself. So it's that universal, ever existing, whatever, love, which is dressing up or putting on a specific suit and looking back at itself. So I'm not saying because there's like a need or there's a the sense of lila, that divine play, if you want to call it like that, of having a plus a minus, of having male female, darkness and light, the duality of things which are there, because you need even like from a electric or magnetic point of view, you need the plus and the minus in order for something to flow in between, right? If not, there is no flow of things. There's only a flow from the high to the low, from the plus to the minus. So for that flow to be able to happen, for the game to go on, for the play to continue, there has to be music, there has to be resonance. So there has to be, two differences basically in between which things can then happen in this world. So I'm not saying that it's not necessary and that that's not a reality as well. But what I'm pointing at is at a reality that is beyond the duality of things.
I think love is sacrificing the fresh air to do this podcast in quietness, because it's a lot of degrees outside today.
I don't want to hear it. It's 95 in my house right now.
I don't even know how much that is. That's just below the boiling point of water, as far as I know.
It feels like it.
I think that's
It's
about
really hot here.
40 something Celsius.
I'm like drinking this water.
Yeah.
It's not cooling me down, and I feel like I'm gonna melt. But
I've
not
been
visibly
steadily watching
melting.
my face get redder and redder, because ever since you did that face reading for me, and you're like, there might be some anger because of the redness in my forehead. And now I've been slowly watching my face just creep up with redness. I'm like, am I
Sometimes
angry or
it's
am I
just
hot?
heat. Yeah, sometimes it's just heat. Yes, I think that the temperature in this room is going up so steadily that I'm like a frog being cooked gradually. So I
Frog
don't
in a
feel
boiling pot?
but I just keep drinking the water. Cheers.
Don't jump away. Stay with us.
All right. Well, I'm going to get
Bring
into
this
something.
back to something
another-
useful.
I want to explore another term, and that is the philosophy of love. So like in individuals' philosophy of love and how that
Isn't
like
that a
is there
contradiction? How can there be a philosophy of love? Love is from the heart and philosophy is from the head.
well
Why
I
can't
guess
they interact?
It's
an
like saying a
understanding
German
though, right?
Chinese. I guess that could happen, a German
What if you
Chinese.
are? Just
It's
because
true.
it's improbable doesn't mean it's impossible.
What's philosophy, by the way?
Ah, man,
How would you
that's
define that?
I think it's
Philo.
ultimately
Doesn't philo mean love?
Phila.
Sophie. So Sophie, the root word for Sophie is wisdom, and the root word for philo is love. So it's love, wisdom. Philosophy is love, wisdom. That.
a love of wisdom.
Let me double check. I'm just doing that from memory. Give me my.
I have
I don't want to mess with all the
knowledge, learning, scholarship, scholarly works, body of knowledge.
Yeah, but is that the
from
etymology,
Old
or is
French.
this just the meaning? Because you know how meaning changes over time.
You talking about connotation?
No, the meaning of the word.
Yeah, but the Greek root of it is actually the love of knowledge, pursuit of wisdom, systematic investigation. From philo, loving.
So I was right with
Sophia
that
is
one.
knowledge, wisdom.
I was right with the both sides. My Latin's getting better. Yay!
Nice.
Philosophia, love of wisdom. So it's not a cerebral thing because it's still love. A philosophy of love is a love of wisdom through love. Seems like
The love of wisdom of love. That's a philosophy.
love of wisdom of love. Very interesting. Love etymology. That's so great.
That's like a exponential amount of love.
To the whatever degree.
But like if we look at different people, if we have different guests on, obviously they're probably going to have different philosophies on what love is all about, and what that might mean in different applications. But thinking in your guys' experience, have you noticed that? Is there different people that bring different ideologies in regard to how they go about their loving relationships?
In other words, you mean everybody brings a slightly, or maybe even very not a very much different filter to it. So it's basically what kind of filter in that example that I used earlier, for the lack of a better word, are bringing people. How do they see love? How do they live love? How do they relate in a loving way to others?
Yeah, I think so. I think you could actually apply like the masculine, or like the accepted masculine version versus the accepted feminine version could be two different philosophies of love. But I think that's one of the beautiful things about individuals is that each person has their own perspective, almost like every snowflake is got its own different pattern. We all really could see, or we could experience something different from each person that is their own version.
I'm just thinking of all my friends who could talk about love in all these different ways. Love through the heart, love of money. Love loves you back.
So it would be super interesting to see the differences, but then also to work out, is there something in common? Is there something that, within that variety and that diversity of filters, so to say, is there something in common that all of, that everybody has to, I think that would be something super interesting to, to look for in our documentary.
Yeah, because that is kind of the idea of the documentary, is to create some lessons learned and then potentially some actions to take, for the audience that could lead to.
Ooh, so is it are we going to make a manual out of this? Like if we have lessons?
Possible.
Right?
It's possible.
I think what is super interesting to me is that if on one hand you would have some hands-on guidings and, like you said, like a manual, but on the other hand also, some people, or sometimes the only thing you really need is to listen to somebody or to be inspired by somebody talking or somebody bringing his or her perspective. So you wouldn't even need to do ABC, but it's like, whoa, this his thing or her thing just blew me away, and that just sometimes listening to a voice or hearing somebody talk about, you know, a topic like love, especially, that in itself might be very, you know, enlightening, bringing light to the way, and making the way lighter, who knows, for people, which I think would be a noble cause for this endeavor, a goal.
Yeah, I was trying to find the uh, David Hawkins, I think is the gentleman's name, that came up with the map of consciousness. And you know, it's a scale that goes from 0 to 1,000, and at 200 is essentially the gap between higher consciousness and lower consciousness, and essentially what he calls the difference between force and power. So below 200 is force, and you know, that's essentially things like fear and guilt and shame. And then above that is, I think, courage is like 250 or 300 or something like that, and love is somewhere up there in the 6, or I don't know, maybe it's 400 or something like that. And then it goes all the way to 1,000, which is, you know, I think enlightenment, and you know, possibly like touching God, I think, maybe at 1,000. But nevertheless, love is on that side of the scale that is empowering. And so, you know, I think that's certainly one of the things that I feel is important, is like kind of pulling people out of the fear and the apathy and the guilt and the shame and all that kind of stuff. And how do you do that? Well, if they have that choice between the two different things, they can start to see the comparison between those, because the higher consciousness does bring energy, and it also satisfies needs, whereas the lower consciousness doesn't, you know. And so that's a significant change for people, you know, when people are demonstrating through their words that they're really in a lower consciousness state. And if you look on television, if you look in the media, that's all you're going to get. You're going to get all those words that demonstrate lower consciousness. So if people are using those words, how do we start to get them to choose to use other words that demonstrate this other level, this other consciousness that's empowering?
We have to start labeling the higher consciousness um, and the actual loving relationships as loving relationships. Just the same as I have to do for my clients, I have to say, you can label this as abusive. Maybe it's not life-threatening. Maybe it's just neglect, but it's still abusive. We need to properly label what loving relationships look like. Even in the heat of an argument, say you're having the worst argument with someone else and they do something that clearly says, I love you no matter how pissed off I am, you stop and say, I noticed that you love me right there. Doesn't change anything right now. We still feel the same way we did 5 seconds ago, but I noticed, and that was loving of you. That was mature of you. Because until they know what it looks like, they already have a label. They already have something there called affirmation and enabling that they have labeled as love. And why would you go look for something that you already have? It makes no sense. So you have to get them to realize what you're experiencing isn't love. This is what love looks like. And the best way we can do that is by showing by example what it looks like.
And create a reference through that you know, and that reference might be there already, like somewhere in the past or somewhere, you know, dug down in unawareness of it. Or maybe you can bring somebody into the awareness of, you know, love, being able to feel love right here, right now. You know, it's like, whoa, look around. But is there, you know, something that you can easily relate to? Or maybe in nature, there's, you know, maybe some environments, some people where you can easier tap into that than in others. But I even think like the documentary, that also should, you know, ideally work as a reference for people. It's like, oh wow, you know, I listened to her and I listened to him, and wow, that's really amazing. So maybe that can be then, you know, like a stepping stone for people to look to their own self, because we always should be guiding people back to their own self and help them to you know, to heal themselves and to make the next step on their individual journey. And so to create reference, I think it's important. And I speak because my own example, like I was giving that and I have been giving that pleasure of reference, like of moments that are, like even, they're hard to describe, even words, and I don't even think anybody else could relate or understand it, because it was me who lived those moments. So it's like, wow, these moments, like I cherish and I hold on to them, and I have them, in a special place. And if I need and if I want, I I remember to go back to them, and that's a reference. Like, oh, okay, like the scale that you were talking. It's like, oh, that's a possibility. That's not just something I read in a book. No, it's an actual reality that I can tap into. So, and that empowers, for the future, because that these possibilities exist.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about with a reference, both of you, in regard to how people could apply that, so that then they could actually look at the relationships that they have and start to say, where is the spots, where are the things that I could recognize where those people that are in a relationship with are displaying these loving characteristics or traits or examples that I can acknowledge, and I can say, oh, I see that. I really appreciate that you did this thing for me, and so really start to acknowledge that, oh my God, there's this whole other world that I've been completely ignoring, because I just haven't been paying attention to these things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed, or that's not the best way to say that. One of the things that can key you on or key you in to people who actually care about you is something that's really simple. When you go to hang out at a party and you get home, I want you to remember all those people who said, hey, text me when you get home. And then I want you to look at your phone and I want you to tell me which one of your friends actually texted you about 20, 30 minutes, about the time that you're supposed to get home and said, hey, did you make it home? Or you get a text the next morning and be like, hey, I fell asleep, but I just want to make sure you got it home. Those are the people who care about you, even no matter how many times you don't respond, because I'm terrible about this. I'm terrible. My mom actually knows that if I'm going to text her back on my way home that something is actually wrong, she should just expect not to hear anything from me until she texts me again. And she's like, hey, did you make it home? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I did forget to text you. No matter how many times I forget to text her back and tell her that I made it home safely, she's still worried.
It's funny because
asking me.
For me, I always feel like it's my responsibility to make sure that they don't worry, because otherwise they're going to have a bad night. So I need to, so I walk through the door and I text like right away. Because I'm like, no, we're good.
That's also another form of like love, because I didn't realize that for the longest time. I used to do this to my husband all the time, where I'd be gone for hours and I'd realize that he didn't know where the hell I was. Like I could have gotten kidnapped 6 hours ago and he wouldn't have known, because I'm just that bad at like texting back. So I made an effort. I was like, dude, I don't want him to worry about me the way that I worry sometimes if,
About him.
Yeah, like I don't want that to happen. So I should make an effort to care about his feelings and be like, you know what, this is a legit, I'd be worried if he didn't text me for 4 hours past when he said he was going to. I'd be like, is something wrong?
Hey guys, whoever just joined Raising Excellence, I hope you know that we changed our time to 2:30 in the afternoon Pacific a week ago or so. So so our time's now 2:30 Pacific to 4, and twice a week, Monday and Wednesday. Because
congratulations,
you're
late, and now you can watch the replay.
And I hope it's Tony. But we'll see. But yeah, you can absolutely watch the replay. So I think it's that time. We bring conclusions to conclude. What are your conclusions? We're going to make a documentary. We're going to make it awesome. It's going to be about love. It's going to be empowering to the universe and society. What else did I miss?
It's going to show you what love is.
We're going to invite people. We're going to invite people to make suggestions about who we can bring to the show that might be of interest, that demonstrates some artistry of the loving relationship.
I already wrote a list of my friends that would be great to have. I have like 7 so far, but I'm sure there's more if I think about it.
I expected this to be like a 4 to 6 month project. So I imagine if you've got 7, I've probably got at least that many myself. And
I got 7 off the top of my head. I'm sure I forgot something out of all my Facebook peeps.
I've got at least 2 long distance friends that I'd love to bring on and talk about long distance best friendships because they're really freaking hard. I love you, Nicole.
So we're going to be doing this every Monday starting this week. And we're going to be doing the artistry of loving relationships every single Monday. Maybe we should come up with like a nice acronym, ALR. Oh, ALR. Nice. And so we're going to do that and then on Wednesdays we're going to be going on with our regular programming, and this week we're going to be talking about holistic health. Deprogramming. Holistic health. So starting this Wednesday we have holistic health special with Mr. Eckhart, and next week we have a special guest about holistic health. And in the meantime, on Mondays we're going to be talking about loving relationships and being more loving in your heart.
Right. And we're gonna examine this from all different directions. We're gonna ask all the difficult questions. We're gonna go into the why, the what, the how, the when, the where.
And how the lack of love can kill you. It's actually more dangerous than a lot of other things censored.
Well, and it's, just to like look at what's going on in the world and what they're asking people to do. I mean, look at how is that going to impact loving relationships, and the potential for loving relationships when everybody is like behind a barrier and got
but
a
you could always have a little
on.
heart on your mask.
When I saw that video of the grandma,
we're gonna have to do.
When I saw that video of the grandma in England, and they made her this special suit out of plastic sheeting, like plastic shower curtain or something, and they put her arms in, and then the grandchild came up, and she had like gloves stuck to this. It was like a hazmat suit, and she was hugging her grandchild through the hazmat suit. Like, there are so many things like that grandchild needs from his grandma, to hug, to be touched, to be held close. And okay, so that was once, but that wasn't a month. Now, when is she going to hug him next? I'm hoping she's hugging him right now. But you know what I mean? Like, how is that going to affect that child's development? Not being able to get a real hug from grandma through plastic sheeting.
What's even creepier, I saw that video, and what disturbed me more was not the older children, because they kind of like understood what was going on. It was the really, really young one who did the whole, I'm gonna not engage in what's going on, I'm gonna stay at the edge, and watched all of this go down. And then they realized what was going on, and that was the only way they get to hug grandma. And so then they conceded. But they didn't want anything to do with it. They were like, why do I have to hug my grandparent through a plastic sheet when the rest of the yard isn't covered in plastic? I just have to stand with this piece of plastic in between me and them. Like, you could see this little child trying to figure it out, trying to figure out what's going on, and being very uncomfortable.
So
just
sad.
Like, I don't know.
So can love
this.
overcome sheets of plastic? Is love strong enough to overcome?
It can if you let it.
That is so sad. So sad.
It did. It made me really sad. It made me sad for that grandmother too, because I was like, that she's like just so happy that she gets to see her grandchildren, that she's willing to do pretty much anything, and that's a really sad state to be in. I went through a bad custody battle with my mom went through a bad custody battle where she went through the same thing, where she was just so excited to see me that like nothing else really matters when you separate families like that.
Yeah.
Give thanks for the fact that we have been able to put ourselves in a place where we are not shut down to that extent by the fear mongering that's going on, and that and big up to everyone, to each and everyone who is also overcoming that, and not only using it for her own benefit, but also radiating out that in order to make a difference in other people's life, and ideally impact them in a way that they can overcome that fear as well, and that state of delusion, if you want. So, and it's not even to say that it's bad, so it's just everyone is where he or she is. But if you're in a place and you don't feel that joy, you don't feel that love, then maybe now is a good time to inquire and to become aware of that, and to take steps and to surround yourself with people and places that will support your finding joy and unconditional love each and every moment of your life.
Yeah, very well said.
Very
yeah,
well
and
said.
I would say that in regard to that little etymology we did, the idea of praise. We can use words in the with the, with the 6 foot distancing and stuff like that, we can still use our words. We can still connect. We can still say things that, show our appreciation of other people, and really start to, or at least keep the hope alive that they can't separate us. They can't keep us from being human. They can try, but that doesn't mean they can succeed at it.
Right. Is there a distance at which love is not working or not there? But people have to be, you can't make people, the thing is, like, if you leave people in a space where they themselves believe that is the case, and where they disconnect their own will, so to say, even if it's unconscious, then that is the gap that's being created. But just like you said, the gap is only there if you, to some extent, are duped into, creating that gap as well. Because naturally, it's not there. Like, there's connection between each and everyone right here and everywhere, regardless of how many feet are in between us. But then bringing our attention, awareness to that is like, wow, it's like it's building and walking on bridges that have been there but have never been used, maybe.
Yeah, because even like the art of loving relationship can even survive death. You can still have a loving relationship even after they've gone. And to me, that suggests that there's quite a bit to explore in this area, and really overcome a lot of the things that the fears that they put into our minds.
That's a key to how you actually can change the past, so to say. Trying that out. You can go back to a specific moment or situation, and you can bring that into your present moment, and you can change the position that you take in that in that moment. So you can bring it into awareness right now, and you can actively and with awareness bring, consciously bring a different perspective and a different positioning of you in that situation to it, and it will change your beingness in this very moment. It will change how you relate to everything in that very moment, just by revisiting that. And there's so much potential in that alone. It's amazing if you tap into it.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Well said, Dennis. All right. Well, I guess we've reminded everybody we've got a new time. We're still on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yes.
Really appreciate everybody's
5:30
time
Eastern.
and attention.
5:30 Eastern, Mondays and Wednesdays, 5:30
Is it
Eastern.
5:30 or 5:35?
5:35. My bad. 5:35.
I thought we were going to change it and be on time.
Oh, well,
5:35.
maybe we can try that.
We'd be on time at 5:35.
Are we ever not on time?
Everything is always on time. There's no such thing as not on time. Time is a construct. It doesn't exist. Oh, I said too much.
We do things in time.
Whose time?
My time?
Alrighty.
Who is the one observing the
God's
time?
For now,
Whose
we
time
will
is
look
it?
forward to seeing you on Wednesday, and we'll be talking about holistic health.
Holistic Health this Wednesday. Next Monday,
Deprogramming.
Artistry of Loving Relationships. Wednesday after that, more Holistic Health with a special guest. So I'm going to play the outro now. All right? Everybody, we love you. Mwah.
Thank you for being here.
Much love, much respect.
Big up and love to everybody.
Bye.